Ekaro, everyone. Thank you for joining our Orisha Devotion webinar today. It is my prayer and wish that Obatala, Olokun, Yamu, Ifa, and all the other Orisha will continue to enhance your existence in remarkable ways. As always, please invite your friends, your family, and your loved ones to be a part of our Ifa, Orisha Isheshe spiritual assembly. We always promise to inspire you with the wisdom of Obatala, Yemu, Olokun, Ifa, and all of the other Orisha. As we normally do, let's start off devotion today with an invocation to Obatala. Ile bobo, ile orisha o. Ile bobo, ile orisha o. Orisha ńlá ló múlẹ̀ wá o. Ile bobo, ile orisha o. Ile bobo, ile orisha o. Ile bobo, ile orisha o. Orisha ńlá ló múlẹ̀ wá o. Ile bobo, ile orisha o. The next couple of devotions that I will have the opportunity to do in due time will center on a similar sentiment. The series of what I will create is something called Sheshefun. So this concept, Sheshefun, is the pillar of Obatala worship. And yes, it is the name of the white beads that we wear as Obatala or white icon, majority of the white icon deities rather, that they wear. But also Efun, of course, is that white chalk that we see that accompanies certain type of deities like Olokun and Obatala, Orishako, and some of the other other white icon deities. And this white chalk is something like a purifying agent. When I speak to some people who solicit me for advice in mental health related, or sometimes if I'm motivated by the deity to write something, I would frequently end with the motto of keep it pure or stay pure. I'm not sure how many of us are into Black house music, but one of my favorite songs by Blue Six is Pure. Among all other things, keep it pure. You see folks wasting time, losing their mind with the wine. Look at me, I stay pure. Like the nap on the back of my head, I'm pure. In Akan, they had something called Ojira, which is actually a celebration of purity. And I feel like this notion, purity is something that's no longer sought as the status quo or is not desirable. But actually in our African history, in our African past, is that obtaining the state of purity is something that was sought or desired to achieve. Above all things, stay pure. But the concept entails this ideal of ritualistic purity. And as I study and I listen to other Obatala devotees, a common shortfall that I hear from the practitioners of this white icon deity is falling short or shortcomings when operating under these cultural norms and still operating in another foreign society with other people with different cultural standards. So as collective Olorisha, for all of y'all who worship your deities outside of Obatala, of course, we are not necessarily, and I mean this respectfully, we don't operate as monks. We are not practitioners that are far removed from society. And I believe that purity can be perfected and achieved in isolation with having good intent towards other people. Yet it is under great provocation. It is under hard times. It is having relationships with And I don't mean this intimately. I'm speaking of just with the inhabitants of the world, but it's having these difficult experiences with individuals that will really test one's true character. Now, as Babokola told me years ago, as I started worshiping this white icon deity in the Yoruba expression, he did state that Obatala does test people's convictions for those who are forecasted to have extreme success. Now, that's either material wise or immaterial. So sometimes individuals may think that, this whole idea of a test is Western or it's a Christian orientation, but that is not true. That the deities do test your convictions and they will give you a series of hardships to see how one will react in the midst of chaos or disorder. So as we're thinking about Sheshefun and purity, consider what does it mean to be pure? And I believe that the idea of purity is just like Ashe, and it's similar to Iwapwele, as these are terms that may be endangered of being culturally appropriated. So when we hear Iwapwele, we hear Iwarere, we frequently hear these terms, and everybody knows the importance of Iwapwele and Iwarere, of ethical character. But yet I am unsure to how in depth do we collectively think about what are the traits that are the composition of these collective behavioral traits? To think really in depthly, what does Iwapwele means? What does Iwarere means? And what are the ethical and cultural standards behind the ideal composition of the ethical person? Now, my own belief and my own bias is that Obatala is the role model of ethical character more so than any other Orisha, as he is named the Obatarisha, the authority of all the Orisha, Baba Orubo, which is the same sentiment as Oshala Oshere Mangbo, which means the principal, the most senior, and the oldest deity from the oldest of days. It's one who had seen it all from the very beginning and created it all on the behalf of Eledamare. Sheshefun, as I stated with the Akan and their idea of Ojira, which is the celebration of purification, is a very similar concept in Kemet as WAP. And WAP, UAB, it is defined by our ancestors as a mental, physical, and spiritual holistic purification. So it's not just in your body, it's not just in your mind, and it's not just in your spirit. It's this integration of this holistic purification. And sometimes in my generation, we can see an emphasis on the aesthetics or the emphasis in things that represent purification, but yet when it comes to behavioral traits, it may be inconsistent, right? So it's going to take more than the organic foods, whole foods, and the side of physical purity that is the composition of the holistic purity. How is our mind? How is our mental state? How is our spiritual ritual? How are our actions towards others? And one thing cannot override the other. It's a holistic composition of what purification actually means. And this purity is the requisite to ritual. It is the prerequisite to ritual communication, and it's the prerequisite to spiritual possession. And this is hidden in the messages to when they tell you Obatala Nyamu is the leader that brings things from Orun to Aye. So it's this purity, it's this purified consciousness that brings things from one side to another. And each deity has its own energy complex, which is easy to overlook. So as Olorishas, over your perspective Orisha, I advise you to sit down and read the patterns of your deities in their oral invocation literature, and then also in the divination poetry. You'll see common themes, and they're telling you what type of energy, what type of consciousness, or what type of vibration that this deity genuinely masters or oversees. Purification is also difficult to understand if one's own piety is grounded in a non-African tradition. So we do know Obatala is not a pacifist. There are several Oshapipes that state Obatala as having this praise name as a warmonger, as the one that will put the hump on the back of the person due to their character, the one that will give a child a disability depending on the character of the mother. It is the one that is responsible for the death of the white man, and so forth and so on. So pacifism is not purity, and being a pacifist is not ethical character. So this is a type of conundrum to make us think what does purity mean from our own cultural perspective. Obatala knows and upholds law. He knows the law in the spirit world, and this must be upheld for it to be reflected in the material world. Hence, as we always hear, as above, so below, and whatnot. These actions of purity support this intergalactical order throughout the world. And this order is recorded by Orunmila. It is coded by Odu and is labeled as Ifa and is relayed to you by Obatala via your Ori and Nu. So in your gut, even in the midst of chaos, even in the midst of extreme provocation, if you silence yourself and you become quiet and still, have a very slow rate of breath, is that you'll know the decision to make. But if you choose to make that decision, it's completely up to your own decision. So for me, as I think about my path and my current state and just the things that I have achieved in the past, what is difficult at times in America is how to handle negativities, how to handle disrespect, or how to handle that provocation. And as we stated, we're not monks to where we're isolated and we can maintain our purity. But as I'm chatting with my other clients and think about my experiences as well, a lot are having difficulties. And it's this fine line between self-advocacy and egotism and what to do before we cross this line. So I'll go over this story. We have heard this story several times about when Obatala went to war and his taboo was to wear that black war garment that you typically see on Ogun practitioners now. It's a black vest full of different types of talisman and charms. And so he chose not to give up this war garment. And then everyone who he went to war with died. So think about what this is saying. The diviners did not say, do not go to war. The diviners did not say, turn the other cheek. The diviner says, humble as the meek and be pacifist. They just told him, don't go to war with that garment on, that you already had something that is stronger than those charms that those hunters use. And so it's something that Obatala yields. And there's something very strong in Funfun. There's something very strong in white. And mind you, Obatala, this is very similar to Oshun. And from my studies, he more than likely taught Oshun, is that they two are the ones that can heal abikus. These are the children that are born to die by only using water alone. Only water and incantations can stop a child from dying multiple carnations. There's something very strong in this pure kind of power. So there's an essay from Edin Karam, and this story covers a time when Obatala found success in remaining pure, but still experiencing negativities under extreme provocation. So Obatala, as we know, is a very proficient Idasha or 16 Kari diviner. Obatala was going to practice divination in the city of Isolu. And before he left the divine, before he left to go divine, he divined himself to see how will his trip be? Will it be prosperous? Will he be successful? And the diviner stated that, yes, you will be successful, and that everything that you are seeking to do will happen, but you should avoid a situation to where you will be disgraced on your way to Isolu, and you should go ahead and offer sacrifice. And Obatala laughed and said, "Ha, you talking about me? Me, being disgraced? Like, what are you talking about? You don't know who I am." You know what I'm saying? Like, if I'm going to be successful, that's cool. I'll come back and do my elbow later. If it says I'm going to be successful, that's all I need to worry about. I'll do the elbow at a later time. Very egotistical. So when Obatala got to the outskirts of Isolu, he got to this body of water, and he had been traveling for quite some time, and he decided to relax and go ahead and take a swim. So he took off all of his garments, his white clothing. He took off his divination implements, and the two things that Obatala is known for having is the Abba and Ashe, which you see here. And hence he's the only one that's gifted with the same praise name as Eledamare, as Alabalashe, the one that possesses the Abba and the Ashe, which essentially means the one who can know anything at any given time and have the Ashe to make it come into pass. Eledamare gifted him with its with its own Obatala with its name, and he is the only deity that has that power and that praise name. So Obatala dropped the Abba, he dropped the Hashe, he dropped the 16 Kari divination implements, he dropped his white cloth, and he decided to just be an ordinary person, get into water, and to go swim. So, unbeknownst to Obatala, is that there was this madman that was troubling the city who had some very serious mental health issues. When people would go and swim, he would jump out at them, jump out of the water, and he would chase them around naked. He would chase the women and the people all around the waters. It doesn't say if he's like a rapist or like a sexual assaultist, but he was basically just causing havoc to people who try to have their peace of mind at this body of water. And Ifa doesn't say if it's a lake, a river, a lagoon, or whatnot. They just called it, Omi, in the essay. So people would organize this campaign to catch this person. And every time they try to organize this hunt, this person would just stop coming all of a sudden. So Obatala didn't know this. So he decided to take a swim, and everything that anyone could identify Obatala with, he took it all. So when he came into the water, the other women were by the body of water, and they were coming there to fetch some water from the fetch some fresh water. And when they saw Obatala and they knew about this madman, is that they started screaming immediately, hysterically, and they were calling out for people to come assist them. Like, look at this man over here. It's that crazy madman again. Like, somebody do something. So before Obatala could even do anything, before he can even process what happened, he was rounded up, captured, incarcerated, still amazed at the fact that what had happened, and he was dragged to the monarch's palace, and he was locked up in a room without even asking him about his explanation of what happened. They didn't get the other side of his story. They didn't listen to what he had to say. They just immediately, under their own bias, threw the man in jail, no questions asked. So as Obatala sat there incarcerated, he began to recite incantations. So he slapped the back of his head, and a ado came out. And so an ado is a small gourd that's not cut in half like as you have such as a calabash, but is a very strong talisman or charm or whatnot that he's known for bringing out of his mouth. So he brought it out, and he was chanting some type of incantation, literary corpus, not sure which one it is. So once he'd done that, everything became completely and totally black in the city of Isolu. It was pitch black, no stars, no birds were chirping. It wasn't anything besides complete total darkness. And so outside of the city limits, everything was normal. But when you come into Isolu, it was just pitch black. It was nothing that was going on. So the monarch was wondering what was the cause of these supernatural occurrences. And so they quickly sent for his diviners. So they sent for Amo which is which was one of the diviners. And soon as he came to approach the city of Isolu, Omo became blind and incoherent. He or she was just out of it. They sent for another diviner, and as this diviner was approaching, the same thing happened to this diviner as well. So third, they called Ogigbi, and Ogigbi is this little tiny ferocious bird, and I'm not sure what the name of this bird is in English. And so the bird says, I'm not going to rush into this situation. I'm going to take my time and figure out what's the problem. So the bird went to divine before he went to Isolu. So when he divined, it stated that the sole cause of their problem is that they falsely accused someone of something that they did not do, and they locked them in the palace. And if they do not find the white clothes and to dress this person in white, the city will become trouble for the rest of their days. And so this story concludes on how this is how Obatala was set free. And Obatala told them that every Orisha in this city is now banned. You will only be worshiping Obatala and Isolu. And then up until now, this is the reason why Obatala is the only Orisha that is propitiated in Isolu. And a quick side note that, it said that Obatala's priesthood is known for their, I guess you can say their quote unquote juju or their magic, as Babakola was relaying to me, more so than Shango, who their priesthood primarily used it for shows and performances and warfare. So with this reminds me of a saying that Eledamare told me quite some time ago, is that spirituality does not state that one will not have hard times. Spirituality states that the hard times will not have you. Obatala is saying through this experience is that one may be wrongly accused, one may be blamed, that one may seek to control another's life, or even as Les Brown says, sometimes other individuals think that stopping you from your destiny or your incarnation objective is their personal job, so to speak. And institutions, as you see, as this system of incarceration can stop individuals from reaching their goals as well. And I guess it's as for political prisoners and whatnot, and the wrongly accused. But the solution here is that Obatala went to ritual. When things go wrong, don't go with them. Your principal Orisha will protect you. Go to your principal Orisha, state your case to them. And if you are pure, there is no way that you can fail. Now, this is very hard to remember in the heat of the moment. And again, I want to reiterate is that the Orisha tradition is not, they are not monks. We are not isolated. We deal with real world stuff and real world people and real world scenarios. So it's hard to remember this in the heat of the moment, in the heat under provocation, when you will have individuals that will lie on you. There are business partners that will cheat you out of a deal or cheat you out of money. There are people who will seek to embarrass you. Those intimate family or friends or close loved ones will seek to shame you. Some will dishonor you. Some will steal from you, cheat from you, and seek to corrupt your peace when one is simply minding their own business. But yet, please catch yourself and do not slip into that impure state of mind out of retaliation. And that, brothers and sisters, is a very difficult feat. Under provocation, do not lose your purity out of retaliation. Just because others did not cherish their own character or cherish their own Iwa, does not mean that you shouldn't make that same mistake. You, just like Obatala, will have to be that leader, take the high road and keep your vibration high. But I feel like sometimes one will feel like they have to be tough. You have to be, confrontational, abrasive, or rude, or in order to place punishment in your own hands to let other people know that, hey, I mean business. Like that hyena that shows its teeth to scare away your prey. But in the opposite side, to be calm, others can confuse as being a pushover or being weak or being passive. But your reaction to your situation does not desire the outcome. It's your ritual and it's the actions that you state, not what you say, and not how you emote in the situation. And also, please consider how one reacts and make sure that it's consistent with the cultural standards and cultural taboos, because one can lose the blessing that is meant for you. There are several things that are norm, that are a cultural norm in American culture that is the antithesis of ethical character in the Yoruba specifically tradition. And so this is where I would implore you to continue to read the divination poems, to read the stories of your deities, and to really think about what ethical character means. Because I assure you, a lot that I see is inconsistent to the wisdoms of Ifa, and it makes you wonder, where are individuals getting their information from? And I feel like in my generation is that there is a popularity of the aesthetic. It's very popular to have the aesthetic of magic, the aesthetic of ritual. And I believe this is due to the media's infatuation with Satanism and witchcraft. But there are many that's just like this Obatala and Obatala's war garment that may rely on herbs, talisman, and charms. But what most don't speak about is the effectiveness of that ritual, is that it is evident by, I guess, desired goals and behaviors and interpersonal relationships. And it makes you wonder, why aren't the rituals working for you? Why isn't the magic working for you? And I'm not saying this to be egotistical, but I can assure from several different situations is that by carrying yourself in this type of pure manner, that things will just fall off, like things will just not affect you. That hard times are not going to ruin your life. You will always have hard times. You will always have oppositions, but it will reassure that there's no harm that will come to you as you're going through this character building experience that we call life. There's a very strong power behind the white, and there's a very strong, fearsome power that is in that sheshefun. Continue to carry yourself with a type of regality, a type of decorum, a stately and reserved manner. And in essence, all the laws of Odu are telling you that there is a route for success in every opposition. But what is easily overlooked is that there is a behavioral mandate that is behind each opposition, that is behind each difficulty. Briefly, I would share with this story from Ifa. And there's something in the Q&A, and I apologize, brothers and sisters. For some reason, it seems like when I try to use the Q&A, it always blanks out for some reason. I'm not sure if I'm doing something wrong. So whomever posted something in the Q&A, try to see if you can put it in the chat, and if you can send it just directly to me in the chat if you want to remain anonymous. And I'll try to get you before the end of devotion today. So there's an incantation from the Oshapipe, which I believe is the source of the poem in Ifa. So in this story of Idingago, it speaks about Obatala and his children. So there's something called Bogbogaon, which is something like this adrenal fatigue, but I like to define it as this holistic sickness where one does not want to get out of bed. One is, just, I guess, in a depressive manner, doesn't want to eat, doesn't want to get up, doesn't want to do much of anything. So it was a time when Obatala was suffering from this adrenal fatigue. And in this story, Obatala, of course, has more than two children, but it speaks about Annie and Nini. And so Nini is the one that had everything in abundance. And Obatala loved Nini above anything else. Obatala granted Nini with anything that he wanted. But then Annie, he was extremely hard on, and he wanted Annie to achieve everything for herself. He would not assist him, and he wouldn't even wish him luck on his way. And this had gone on for many years, until one day Obatala did develop this Bobo Garon. And so when the Babalao came to divine for Obatala, it told him that he needed these pheasant's eggs and lots of them for his ebo. And so he went around town and he was looking for them, and no one had the amount that he needed. So he needed enough from two different people to satisfy the ebo requirement. So Obatala called Nini, and he said, Nini, you're the one I endowed with so many blessings in life. I need you to go in the bush and get some pheasant eggs for me. And this journey would typically take about 2 to 3 days to get 60 pheasant eggs or so. So Nini laughed and said, Baba, what do I look like going into a bush and getting these pheasant eggs for you? Yeah, let me call some of the peasant staff and let me see if they can get them for you. Why would a prince roam around in the bush looking for eggs? And so while Nini was complaining bitterly, and after he was asked to do something, Annie got up courageously and he says, Baba, I will do it. I will go and do this for you. And Annie got up and he left very abruptly, quickly. He didn't even take a basket to get the eggs. He went into the bush and he started, tying some palm fronds together to make this makeshift wicker basket. And then he went down there, back there and back to Ife and whatnot, and got the eggs so that Obatala can perform the ebo. And so Obatala withdrew his support from Nini and gave everything to Annie. He gave everyone he took it all from the have all and give it to the have not. And so this is recorded in the Oshapipe when it says that Obatala will take from the greedy in order to give to the needy. And so I know there's a lot of controversy about this essay, and that a lot of folks state like, hey, Obatala was the one that was responsible because he was the one blaming his children. I think, that it's a literal component, but there's also an esoteric component in the essay and the Oshapipe as well. And something to overlook or a hidden meaning in this story is that even in poverty, even if we do not inherit anything but debt, even when we have a great amount of responsibility, when we serve the Orisha, we must be diligent in our worship, and we cannot only go to the Orisha when we want something, that we have to be very appreciative, and then we should not take advantage of the multitude of blessings that we had already received from the Orisha, that we should make a reoccurring, frequent propitiation, invocation, and feeding to our deities on a regular basis, not just when we need something. And we see here that Obatala needed his child to uplift them. The Orisha needs you to uplift them. But it was through this arrogance, this selfishness, this anger, this greed, that one lost all the blessing that Obatala was going to bestow upon his child. So in closing, spiritual maturity or spirituality is a sign of true growth and maturity. Spirit possession or spirit communication, when it is true, a deity will tell you to do something, to act in a way that your lower self does not want to act. And this is due to pride or whatnot. So when you are led by your deity, at times it will make you want to grow, or make you want to evolve, or make you want to say or do something that your lower self does not want you to do. A lot of times it comes from swallowing your pride, of being calm, of being cool, of being very patient, being like that elder, being like Obatala, that very old leader, and just doing what you know that is right in your heart. And that purity will ensure that these hopeless situations and that these adverse scenarios will not affect you or will not keep you from thriving. One will keep on succeeding. In times where it appears that all hope is lost, I assure you that keeping up with these behavioral traits, with Iwa Puele, Iwa Rere, having that Sheshefun, of having a pure heart will put you in very high places that the most qualified cannot touch. And I can tell you that from personal experience. Now, when you have a cleaning agent, such as an antiseptic, a disinfectant, let's say a toothpaste, soap, or whatever you want to call, is that this purity, it takes away the dirt, it takes away the grime, but yet certain types of dirt will be repelled away from it. So think about alcohol, when you pour alcohol into a wound, or when you're cleaning the floor with pine sol or whatnot. When you have this agent of purity, it repels negativity, or it repels dirt, it repels grime, it repels the vibrations that are inconsistent with that cleaning agent. So purity acts like magic in a sense, right? It repels those low vibrations away from you. And it's just like Obatala said in Oshapipe, is that the Ajogun are under the feet of Obatala by keeping this pure state of mind, in this pure ritual, in this pure behavior. All right. In closing, for the Iwa of the week, I would consider that we should find a way, in whichever way is convenient to you, to recommit yourself to that type of ethical purity. Think about that moment when you if for you all who are initiated, think about that moment when you finish your 7 days. How did you feel holistically? And I feel like it's a beautiful experience when we are isolated for those 7 days. But then when we step out of the room, when we conclude our 7th day, that's when the real work begins. Recommit yourself to that type of purity. Forgive yourself from the past mistakes. Like my mom used to say, if you known better, you would have did better, right? And sometimes individuals can live in the past. They can live under regret. You can live under the shattered lens of somebody else's perspective that only sees the bad side in you. Shake it off. All the things that happened in the past, leave it there, and step forward and move as a recommitted devotee to your deity. Reconsider your environment and reconsider your associates, because everyone cannot go with you on your sacred journey. There are some things, some people, some behavioral states, some actions that are going to have to die off, and they cannot come with you. In the midst of all different types of negativity, just ignore it and focus on your life goal. I was speaking to one of my clients who had a hard time with this concept, or wanting to impress their parents, or just feel like they're constantly in this mode of having to prove something to other folks. And I told them, I do not care what other people think about me. You know what I'm saying? And I'm not saying not to be accountable, but sometimes we can invest so much time into things that aren't real, or to having everybody wanting to like us, and you change yourself, becoming someone who you're not. But then all of your goals, all of your life focuses, all of the things that your Orisha told you to do are falling by the wayside by having this disease to people please. Ignore all the negativity, ignore the naysayers, ignore the malevolence, and just solely focus on your life goal, on what your deity had told you to do. All right. Thank you all for joining devotion today. I'm going to take a look real quick in the chat. Okay. Ifa Bemi, thank you so much. Yeah, I appreciate it. I'm glad that the words of Obatala resonated with you all. There's one that says, reiterate the distinction between Orisha, Funfun, and Obatala. Right. So when I was speaking about the beads, so the sheshe, so there's we got Obalu Fon, Orisha Bukun, Orisha Ako, Yamu. These are white icon deities, to where all of their implements are, painted white. They only use like onje as a metal. They use, white beads, white clothes. So if you see them, you would more than likely have a hard time differentiating them from different Orisha. So that's ideally what Orisha Funfun is. There are white icon Orishas that have white beads, and all of their icons and things are white. But I kind of differentiated that from Orisha Oko. So Orisha Oko is in a sense a white icon Orisha, but Orisha Oko doesn't use Sheshefun. His beads are white, but they have like a little small blue like dot in them, but they're called something else. But it's similar to Sheshefun, but I don't know it off the top of my head. I have it saved somewhere. But in essence, that's what a white icon Orisha is. All right. Okay. Yes, Ifun Tola, I will take note of your information here in regards to um finding some good material um to read. Another one says the one that put the hump on the back for those a bad character. Does this mean he will cause one to age fast or to have health issues? So in a sense, so there's different poetry. So like there's a different Osha Pipe where someone would say, you know, Osha, please don't put a hump on my back. Put the hump on my belly is what you should do. Stating like, you know, don't disable me. But the hump in the stomach is inferring a child. And so there are stories to where, and this is out of Igbagdan, with one of the practitioners there in his account was stating that there are times to where there's certain rituals that have to be done after birth. Even they said like if there's a child who was born under Osha, under the Igbagdan perspective, like the woman can't leave the place that she gave birth at an X amount of days. But if she does, then the child will have certain type of skin issues or certain type of physical disabilities, and that's keeping up with the taboos in Igbagdan. There are stories that stated that there are certain type of health defects that Obatala does to punish either the child from a previous carnation um, or punish what someone had done previously. So considering that his unique um, relationship with forming, because he's the one that is forming the kids in the Arun out of the soil. They're all from my research, it does appear that he does have an intricate role into health ailments and physical disabilities and whatnot. But what I will, and it's a side note, which I will disagree with. I know a lot of people are saying that Obatala is the one who made people disabled because he was drunk. I haven't came across an essay or a pipe that says that. We do know that he's responsible for those with deformities. But the time that when Obatala was drunk is when he was creating the world. He wasn't creating people at that time. And then when they woke up, he went on about his business. So it said nothing about that. So it does seem that he does have some type of relationship to physical handicaps. And it could be out of, you know, retribution, retaliation, or something that someone had done previously, or it can just be like a slip up. That's why they're called any Orisha, the ones that are special or particular to Obatala, but more research needs to be done in that regard. Exactly, Eledamare, thank you for that. As a young man, I have learned that, you know, the way that you learn and the way that you grow is from, you know, experience. And sometimes we make the right choices, sometimes we don't, and it's all good. But just use it as a learning experience to keep moving forward. You know, and I can say that is with the clients that I do have and people I do deal with in the community. Sometimes hardships, when we fall short, will make one want to stop. But it's a learning process. You're learning, you're growing, just like all the deities. They're going through a learning process. So just because Obatala got drunk and messed up, he didn't just stop right there. You know, because, you know, Ogun messed up, he didn't stop right there. Because Yemoja, you know, took the medicine and upset the king, she didn't stop right there. You know, every deity went through their own learning experience. But if we stop, we're not growing. And if we're not moving forward, we're not growing. If we avoid ourselves from scenarios and situations, we're stopping the opportunities to develop and to grow. And I think that is absolutely true. And just keep, you know, purity as the main focus in one's life. And it's a moving target that we just keep moving to and moving to. And once we mastered one aspect of life, you will definitely get another one. as Bible Cola mentions as well. Right. Uncle Fumike says, don't diminish my life, instead cause me to give life. Right. Don't inhibit or impede my life. Give me the opportunity to produce and give more life. All right. I hope this all was beneficial to you all today. I'm making last notes here. And it was a pleasure to fill in for Bible Cola again today. If you all have any questions, you can also give me an email at ishola@ifa University, or you can just go into the portal. Thank you for blessing me with this time and this opportunity, and I will see you all very soon. Enjoy your break. Classes start up soon in the second week of October. We'll see you soon. Ariel Odabo.